Today we are country divided, or at least that's what we're told. We are torn apart by immigration, education, guns, and healthcare. Healthcare is ugly and it is loud, so loud that it threatens to drown out everything else. Quiet. But what if underneath all the noise we're not divided? What if the things that we don't ask about are the things what we most agree upon? It turns out that when we ask the right questions, the answers are startling because we agree, and not on healthcare, but on something more important. We agree on health. For 20 years, I've been obsessed with one question. What do all of us need in order to be healthy? As a college student in 1995, I spent asking down, asking them, what's the one thing your patients most needed to be healthy? They shared the same story again and again, one that I've heard hundred of variation of sense. They say every day I see a patient with and I prescribe a controlled medication, but I know she if is living in a mold infested apartment, or I see a kid with a ear infection and prescribe, but I know there is no food at home, and I don't ask about those issues because there is nothing I can do. Now it seems that it shouldn't be complicated to design a doctor's visit around the people actually need to be healthy. So I created Healthy Reads, an organization enabling thousands of physicians and other caregivers to ask their patients, what do you need to be healthy? And then prescribe those things: fruits and vegetables, heat and winter, electricity to refrigerate their medication. And we then navigated patients to those resources in their communities. The model works as Mass General Hospital study found that navigation patients to essential resources is associated with improvements in blood pressure and cholesterol, similar to introducing a new drug but without all side effects. So 2 decades later, what's changed? It's now widely recognized that just 20% of health and tied to medical care, with ours up to 70%, are tied to healthy behaviors and what's called the social determinants of health. Basically, everything that happens to us for that vast majority of time when we're not in a doctor's office or the hospital. Healthcare executives now run routinely that our zip code matter or more than our generic, and one healthcare publication even recently had audacity to describe the social determinants of health as a feel-good buzzword of the year. Now there has been some action too. Over the past decade, six major healthcare providers have committed over $600 million to affordable housing, recognizing that it reduces infant mortality and increases life expectancy. But let's be honest, is our $3 trillion healthcare system fundamentally designed to create health? Absolutely not. Take access to healthy food. Not long ago, a teenage boy shows up at hospital in Baltimore losing weight just as his doctors has a hand lit up fingering as blood test to run. One of my colleagues asked out loud, "Do you think he might be hungry?" It turned out that this kid has been housing and lately hadn't had a meal in weeks. He said he was so relieved that somebody finally asked me. Somehow we've created a healthcare system where asking a patient, "Are you hungry?" is so far outside the bounds of what counts as healthcare that we mostly fail or forget to ask together, where doctors lament hospitals' no third sandwich policy, meaning that if you're a hungry patient in ER, you can have only 2 free sandwiches, but as many miles as a doctor orders. Where in 2016, in the state of Texas, they spend $1.2 billion on a medical cost of malnutrition instead of access to healthy food, whereas Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Service Program starve hungry patients so that some get access food and some get information about food, with a justification that doing nothing for hungry medication is standard and usual care in this country, and that's just food. The same is true for housing, electricity. The bottom line says health care may be changing, but not by enough, and certainly not fast enough. We asking the wrong question of our doctors, our patients, but also our citizens. We ask about and agree health care, but how do voters no one could tell us the answer of that question. So we launched a new innovation and hired a polling firm to ask, what do you know? What do you need to be healthy? What was so striking about this was that no one has any clue what we are talking about in healthcare. Voters do not think the social determinants of health and feel a good phrase. They actually hate it. What an educated person came up on with that language, one of the voters said. On my favorite was, "You're killing me." But when you strip away all ridiculousness of our language in healthcare, we know exactly what creates health. So take Charlotte, North California. We had two focus groups, one of African American Democrats woman and one of white Republican, and we asked them, if you had $100, How would you spend it to buy health in your community? Turns out they agree nearly to the last percent point. First, they agree the healthcare only sort of impacts, so they choose the spend majority outside hospitals and clinics. And second, they agree one what's creates health, spending 19% on and about 25% on access to healthy food. So I'm sure you are thinking that's got to be a fluke, but it's not. White and Latino male swinging vendor in Seattle. White and African American Democratic voters in Cleveland. White male Republicans. Low income white Democrats in Helsingoville, North Carolina. Their answering are stunning similar.